All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the Falcons Buccaneers game from Sunday. This was a big matchup. These teams met a few weeks ago, and the Falcons got the best of the Bucs in that game in overtime, winning 36-20. Kirk Cousins throwing for 500 yards in that game, and since then the Buccaneers just have been running into some bad luck with when it comes to their receivers. When it comes to their receivers, no Mike Evans in this game, no Chris Godwin, and despite that, it still ended up being a close game, and the Buccaneers definitely could have won. But one of the things that they are, struggling with, besides just being injured at the receiver position, is the fact that their defense just has not been playing good. Their defense has been giving up a lot of points, and Baker Mayfield and that shorthanded offense has to keep up with these teams. I mean, last week they played against the Ravens. Ravens put up 41 points against them. When Mike Evans went out, Baker threw a couple of interceptions, and now you got to keep up with the Falcons team that's inconsistent, but they've proven in these two games that they could put up points on this Buccaneers defense, and Baker and the offense did what it could do, but in the end, it just wasn't enough, and they can't come up short. Going through the game summary, the Bucs got the ball first, and they immediately fumbled. 2 plays into the drive, they fumble. Rashad White ends up fumbling. It gets recovered by Jesse Bates, and Kirk Cousins turns that into a touchdown. On 4th and 3, he connects with Kyle Pitts for a 36-yard touchdown. There was a defensive holding on the play. But yeah, that put them up 7-0. Kyle Pitts actually had a big day on National Tight Ends Day. Forgot to even mention that it was National Tight Ends Day. And a lot of tight ends showed out. George Kittle was good. Kate Otten in this game was good. Kyle Pitts was good. A lot of tight ends showed out. But then the Bucs answered. 15 plays, 70 yards, 8.5 minutes of time of possession. And like I said, Baker Mayfield connects with Kate Otten for a 5-yard touchdown. So they tied the game there. Then the Falcons punted, and then the Bucs, they had the lead. On 3rd and 8 from their 28, Baker connected with Kate Otten for a 29-yard pass play. They eventually get down to the Falcons 18, and Baker connected with Rashad White for an 18-yard touchdown. So yeah, they were up 14-7. You got to feel good, keep it going. But then the Falcons responded, 7 plays, 70 yards. Kirk Cousins connected with Kyle Pitts for a 49-yard touchdown. Now it looked like it was going to end up being a touchback because it got knocked out of his hands, but they ended up reviewing it and it was upheld. And he did cross the plane right before it got knocked out. So it was 14-14 at that point. Buccaneers then punted. Falcons another touchdown. Kirk Cousins connected with Darnell Mooney for a 30-yard touchdown. So that made it 21-14. Bucs responded, kicking a field goal with Chase McLaughlin. It was a 52-yarder. But the Falcons then responded with the field goal of their own, Younghoe Koo, from 39 yards out. So at the half, it was 24-17. Then Falcons punted on their first drive in the second half. Baker threw an interception, but the Falcons didn't do anything with it. Buccaneers then turned it over on downs on their drive. They went for it on 4th and 3, and they ended up losing 2 yards. And then the Falcons turned that into a touchdown. Kirk Cousins connected with Bijan Robinson for a 6-yard touchdown. So that made it 31-17. Baker once again throws another pick, trying to hit Jalen McMillan. They were at the Atlanta 24. Then there ended up being a safety, so that made it 31-19, and then the Buccaneers turned that into a touchdown. Baker Mayfield connected with Kate Otten for another touchdown, so that made it 31-26. And then the Falcons missed a field goal. So, the Bucs had, a minute to drive down the field, but, they got down to the Atlanta 33, but there were a couple of penalties, and they couldn't score on that drive. They ran, well, partly because they ran out of time, but yeah, another loss. They dropped to 4-4. Kirk Cousins, very good game. 23 of 29, 276 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did have the fumble that, or did have a fumble, but yeah, he also had the safety that ended up happening. Bijan Robinson, 63 yards on the ground. Tyler Algier had 33 yards on the ground. Raven McLeod, 1 carry for 17 yards. Kirk Cousins actually had 16 yards rushing. So maybe, getting more confidence in his legs when he has to. He had a 13-yard run in this game. Kyle Pitts, big game. 4 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Darnell Mooney had 4 for 86 and a touchdown. Bijan Robinson had 7 for 43 and a touchdown. Drake London, 4 for 34. The Falcons' defense, no sacks in this game. Younghoe Koo went 1 for 2 on field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. Then for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, he's a mixed bag. He throws for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, but then you got the 2 interceptions. He went 37 of 50. Bucky Irving had 44 yards on the ground. He was their leading rusher. Rashad White only had 29 yards on the ground. The Bucs as a team only ran the ball for 102 yards. Cade Otton was their leading receiver, 9 receptions for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Raheem Jarrett had 3 receptions for 58 yards. Bucky Irving had 7 for 40. Rashad White had 5 for 38 and a touchdown. Jalen McMillan had 4 for 35. Trey Palmer had 2 for 29. The Bucs defense had 2 sacks in this game, but they're giving up a ton of yards. The Falcons finished with 394 yards, and actually the Bucs had 432 yards of offense, and they ran 12 more plays than the Falcons did. But the Falcons also at times had shorter field position to score. But the Falcons now improved 2-0 against the Bucs on the season, and right now you look at this division and you like the Falcons' chances. They got the Cowboys at home coming up this week, and the Cowboys are not playing well. They're not playing well. Dak and CeeDee got it going at the end, but you could say, well, that was in garbage time. I think that'll be a competitive game. Because I don't trust the Falcons. I don't. I trust them enough to win the division, but I don't trust them in other games. In certain games. Like this game, I don't trust them. Like I think they should win because the Cowboys have not been playing great, but the consistency with this offense has been a question. Has been in question because, you put up 36 points against the Bucs in Week 5. You put up 38 points against the Panthers in Week 6. And you won them in 2 different ways. The Week 5 game against the Bucs was with the passing game. And the Week 6 matchup against the Panthers, that was more of the running game. And then you go up against Seattle, and Kirk Cousins turns the ball over 3 times, and the Seahawks end up winning 34-14. But now this week you play against the Bucs. You put up 31 points. Kirk Cousins has 4 touchdowns. It's just the consistency of this team. They still got to work on that. And again, Cowboys are not playing great, but would not surprise me if they ended up winning this game. But they're 5-3 and they're in the driver's seat. Regardless of what I'm saying here, they're in the driver's seat right now to win this division. They are. And for the Buccaneers, it's unfortunate what's going on with them right now. Because they really should have beaten the Falcons in Week 5. And then they'd at least be 5-3 right now. But now, you got to go to Arrowhead this week on Monday Night Football, shorthanded, and then you got the 49ers at home the following week. So they're looking at 4-6. And, I talked about it. The Bucs are playing really good to start off the year. And I said, just do not have that midseason collapse like you did last year. But then they were able to turn it around and make the playoffs and win the division. You're not going to be able to do that. Now, if they could find a way, to somehow split the Chiefs and 49ers games. They could find a way. Then you go into the bye, you come out, you take on the Giants, you take on the Panthers, you take on the Raiders. So if you could split, go 5-5, and you come out of the bye week, you're looking at possibly 3 straight wins. Now, it's not going to be easy. The one game, believe it or not, I think the toughest game out of those 3 is the Giants because the Giants have a good defense. But they just can't put up points. And, the Buccaneers defense has struggled this year. But then again, the Giants have gone up against defenses like the Bengals defense, which is one of the worst defenses in football, and they only put up 7 points. So, and they're missing their left tackle. But I think if the Bucs can at least split, and then it looks like you're going to get Mike Evans after the bye week. So that could be huge if they could somehow find a way to split. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to go 0-2, and you're going to be 4-6. But, you're 4-6, you win 3 straight games, you're 7-6, you're right back in it. And then you got the Chargers, which is going to be a tough game. Then you're at Dallas, which is going to be a tough game as well. Panthers should win that. And then at home against the Saints, you should beat them. But then again, Derek Carr is coming back this week. So, after this stretch with the Chiefs and the 49ers, the schedule does get softer. But there are some tough games in there. So, and you look at, the NFC, and it's not going to be easy in the wild card. Your pathway to making the playoffs is most likely trying to win the division. But you're already 0-2 against the Falcons. So, they did get a win against the Saints. They haven't played the Panthers yet. So, at least if they can maybe win out against those teams and you go 4-2, we'll see. But there's still a lot of season left. And, despite the injuries, they're still putting up points. It's just the problem is the turnovers and the defense. So that's how I look at it. But let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. Do you think that with this win, do you think this kind of cements, it's still early, but do you think that the Falcons now are in the driver's seat to win this division? Do you think the Bucs can somehow find a way to get themselves back in it? Let me know in the comments. And it's unfortunate because Baker's had a good year, and it's just the Buccaneers just ran into some bad luck. And it looks like that, we could be heading towards something similar to last year where, at one point they were 4-7. But let's see. They got to go up against the Chiefs. And, it's going to be a very tough game. That defense on the road, you're shorthanded. But, Baker's played some good games there before when he was a member of the Browns, even though they lost both in the playoffs and in the season opener. The season after that in 2021, but maybe they find a way. Who knows? So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it. Just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Dolphins-Cardinals game. We'll talk about Tua making his return to the field. We'll get into that, how he did, and we will also talk about the game itself and the Cardinals pulling off the win. So we'll get into all that when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.